From the Fidelity Bank Foundation studio, PBS Kansas presents One-on-One with Victor Hogstrom.
This is where the stars align for great conversation. Tonight, I sit down with a woman whose life has been shaped by curiosity, community, and the courage to take a leap of faith. Lindsey Young was a high school teacher when she and her husband, Joey, took on the ambitious challenge of running their own newspapers. But what started as a simple idea for a weekly food column has turned into a flavorful journey spanning over 600 recipes, countless lessons, and a beloved feature read across Kansas. Despite all that experience, Lindsey still calls herself an enthusiastic amateur, and that's exactly what makes her story so relatable. Tonight, Lindsey shares the highs, the challenges, and the unexpected joys of blending journalism, cooking, and small-town life. And of course, she's brought along a few culinary surprises to share, and I'm excited. Let's welcome Lindsey Young, one-on-one, right now. Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Victor Hogstrom, and I'm pleased to welcome newspaper publisher and food journalist Lindsey Young to the program. Lindsey, folks have been reading your recipes, reading your food columns, trying your recipes in their homes, and now they get to meet you and to find out what you're all about. So let's begin by taking us back to 2012. What made you and your husband, Joey, decide to take the leap into running a community newspaper?
So we were newlyweds at the time. We'd only been married for 2 years, and I was teaching full time. Joey was working on the copy desk at the Hutchinson News, and so he was working second shift. So we saw each other about an hour a day most of the time, and so he was in his scheming mode of entrepreneurship all day long, trying to figure out what he wanted to do. And one day he announced to me that he had called the owner of the paper that he used to work for, the Clarion, and asked if he would be willing to sell it. And at first he told him no, and then called him back and said, actually, let's talk. And so he had to admit to me that he had offered to buy this paper without actually talking to me about it first. But we saved our pennies as much as we could. We didn't have a rich benefactor or anything, so we lived on one salary and put everything else in the bank until we had our down payment, and just jumped in both feet, just decided that this was the right move for us, and haven't looked back since.
And that one salary was the teacher's salary?
Yes. So the most lucrative salary of the two of us was mine.
So was writing always a passion of yours, or did you just discover it along the way?
It always has. Even when I was in grade school, and I mean, my poor teachers, I would always be writing my next little, children's book or novel or whatever it was, and handing it off to them to make them read it. And I always told my mom I was going to be an author someday. That was going to be my goal. I didn't know that it was going to be newspapers instead, but it's been awesome.
And you're enjoying it?
I love it.
So you describe yourself as an enthusiastic amateur. What does it mean? That is, in the kitchen.
Yes.
What does it mean, and how did your love of cooking begin?
So I grew up around amazing cooks. Both my grandmothers were fabulous cooks. My mom's an amazing cook, and so I was always the kid that was in the kitchen underfoot, trying to figure out what they were doing and how they were doing it. When I was probably in middle school, I made my mom help me make my own recipe cards, and I still have it in my recipe book box that is a card for making canned corn, and it says how much salt and pepper I should put into it, what temperature I should put the pot on. I mean, I was very meticulous. But yeah, I still, even now, after writing and doing so many recipes, I like to say I'm an enthusiastic amateur, because I never fully feel like I know what I'm doing. I never feel like I've reached the level of those cooks that I grew up around.
Well, you never know.
I hope someday.
So what kind of feedback you get when you publish your articles, your recipes, and your stories about food?
So it's been awesome. Like, it's so fun to be able to interact with our readers in that way. And it's funny, we'll be in the grocery store sometimes and somebody will come up and first they check out what's in the cart because they're trying to figure out if they can know what my next recipe is going to be. But some people tell me they cut them all out and they never actually make any of them, but they love to read it. And some people, I have a few people that try almost every single thing I ever make and write me about it. But it's been such a neat way of just, food is such a great equalizer with people. Like, it's a really easy thing to talk to. So that's been really fun.
So how did this idea of a food column come about?
So I was teaching full time when we bought our paper because somebody had to, keep the lights on for a little while while we support our newspaper habit. And I just really wanted to contribute something. And I knew I was going to be doing all the bookkeeping and the behind the scenes, but I just wanted to have a piece on the page. And so I naively was like, well, I'll just try a new recipe every week. This will be easy. That's no big deal. And it didn't recognize at the time what a time commitment I was putting myself up for. But that was really the goal, was that I just wanted to contribute something to the page.
So Lindsey, did you ever think that idea of just contributing to the page would have gone on 10 years and longer?
No. I kept thinking at some point everybody was going to be like, just stop doing this. Like, it's ridiculous at this point. But no, it has been a labor of love for that long. It's been fun.
What was the first recipe you tested?
The very first one I put in was for a microwave peanut butter fudge.
Okay.
And it was something that I'd tried originally back in college. I learned it didn't land me a husband then, but I kept thinking if I could just cook in my dorm room, maybe I could get somewhere. But I did get a lot of good friends out of it.
Okay. And have you ever had a complete kitchen disaster that made for a great story that you've written about?
Yeah, so I've written about it, but I did not share the recipe because I didn't want anyone else to suffer as Joey and I had suffered. But it was several years ago now. I made it was a honey lime chicken, and it was in the crock pot. We get home after work, we dish it up, and we both start eating it, and it tasted like someone poured pixie sticks on a chicken thigh. Like, it was the sweetest, grossest, like, it was so bad. And I don't like to waste anything, but we just had to throw it out because there was no saving it. And so I have written about it that, not everything is always a home run when I make it. But yeah, that one, I still can taste it almost. It was that bad.
And there was a honey lime.
Yeah.
Not lemon.
No, it was honey lime chicken. It was supposed to be kind of I don't know, some sort of Mexican thing that just ended up being more, it was not good.
So after 600 recipes, do you ever struggle to find new ideas, new recipes, new things to do?
The internet has been an amazing tool for me because anything that somebody has tried, is out there. There are times when I struggle because I have to keep a list, so I remind myself what I've made and what I haven't, because at this point, it's really easy to forget. But the internet provides. Pinterest is an amazing tool for finding all kinds of things out there.
So tell us, what are some of your favorite dishes you've discovered through writing the column that you write?
So I could never make biscuits work in my entire life. I've always tried, and my biscuits were always hard as hockey pucks. And I finally found a really good biscuit recipe. So I've been really excited. I make that all the time. But I've also, especially during the pandemic, I really started exploring more like Asian style cooking. And so there's a cashew chicken recipe that we make all the time now, and there's orange chicken and that kind of stuff that I can make at home. And it's ruined going out to eat a lot of the times now, but it's really fun to be able to make it at home.
What's a recipe that you thought would be a hit that ended up a flop?
I went on a kick for a while of making homemade candies so I made homemade Butterfingers, and those were fabulous. I then tried homemade Tootsie Rolls, and they were the worst. They just, you'd put them down on the table and they would just start spreading slowly out into goop, and did not taste that great. But you got to try it just to see if it'll work. So
has writing about food changed the way you cook at home for you and your husband and for guests?
Yes. So everybody that is my friend knows they are my guinea pig at all times.
Okay.
We have some dear friends that always hold a what they call a Friendsgiving every November. And so I always sign up for dessert, and nobody knows what's going to happen when I show up with whatever I show up with. So that's been, and it's really inspired us to host more dinner parties and have more friends over so that, we don't just have gobs of food sitting around that I'm trying all of the time.
Right.
So yeah, it's become very much a communal thing with a lot of the people in our circle.
Well, running a newspaper, especially today, is no small feat. What have been some of the biggest challenges that you all have experienced running the small newspapers?
I mean, a lot of it has been, obviously the financial pieces of it, that, paper and postage have become so much more expensive over the last, 10 years or so than they were when we first started. And, we see a lot of our small towns that are shrinking. They don't have the main street, the robust, advertising base on their main streets as they used to. So we've really had to think about how to pivot to make sure that we're able to still sustain a big newsroom, and we make sure we pay our people a living wage and all of that kind of stuff. And so we've really had to think about, how do we make sure that we're supporting ourselves while also being a good steward of our community and a good steward of our employees.
So community newspapers play a vital role in the small towns. Mm-hmm. Why is it?
It's, people like to say that journalism is the first recorder of history. And I often say in our small towns, it's the only recorder of history. A lot of the things that are going on social media, they're going to disappear, they're going to, float away somewhere into the ether. But like what we are actually putting in that paper is so important to preserve what is happening in our small towns. And on top of that, in towns where there are newspapers, the taxes are lower, there's higher voter engagement, there's a lot of really good things that come along with a paper being in a town.
With a small newspaper, you would imagine a small staff. Mm-hmm. So do you and Joey have a clear division of duties? Or do you both wear all of the hats?
We both do a little bit of everything. So I think our staff members have more of the delineation. We're kind of the fill-ins. So I run my paper route every week where I'm the one putting it on the racks. I always think it's funny. I'm sure most people, when they see me walk in with my stack of papers, have no idea that the publisher is the one putting the paper on the news rack. I do copy editing. He does all the design work, and then we do bookkeeping. He helps me with billing. But yeah, he and I are very much a very good team for taking care of all of this stuff that goes on behind the scenes.
And you write more than food columns, though.
Yes.
And stories about food.
Yeah.
You write some other stories.
Yeah, sometimes. I'm kind of the fill-in gal. If they don't have somebody cover a meeting or take care of stuff, I jump in a lot.
So what is the story that you have written and published that really stuck with you?
Oh, so I'm a features person. I love the human interest side of journalism. Covering meetings and all that is very important, and those are really good for that, but I've always enjoyed the feature writing side. And so one of them I think about often is actually a good friend of mine that I did a story on her being a music person out at a summer camp, and just talking about her faith and how that worked in with her life, and just getting to take all these pictures of her hanging out with kids. And it was just such a fun story to do.
You've brought something special.
Yes.
For us tonight. And tell me about what I'm going to be tasting that you've made. So
you ask, about finding new recipes, and part of what I've discovered is that sometimes delving into the weird is a way of kind of finding those new things. But I've also discovered flavor combinations that are fabulous. So these cookies that are here, these are a basil lemon sugar cookie. Yeah, they're green. Yeah. You take fresh basil with sugar and pulverize it so that it makes this beautiful green sugar that's not only in the dough, but then you also roll it in it. And I always thought basil just, it's a lasagna red ingredient. It's not a cookie ingredient, but it's actually really fabulous with the sugar. And then the other one is a brownie. It's a jalapeno brownie, and this one's a really simple one because it's literally just adding jalapenos to normal brownies. But the flavor profile is so much; it just kicks it up to an interesting notch, and it's great with like a glass of milk or a scoop of ice cream.
So can I expect that to be hot?
It's
Spicy?
I mean, it depends on your tolerance level. For me, if I eat more than one, it starts to build on itself, so it's not terrible. But I definitely know people that would take one bite and say, absolutely not.
Well, I'm willing to try it.
Okay.
So let's see what we got.
Yeah.
The brownies. All right. I taste the jalapeno, but I don't taste the spice. It's not hot enough for me.
Yeah. I could kick it up for you
I'm
next
sure
time.
you can. But it's delicious.
Thank you.
Yes. And jalapeno brownie with a glass of milk. Mm-hmm. Really?
Yeah. It's fabulous. The milk's the best, to have with spicy food anyway, because it.
But I do taste a little spice in it, kick in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the brownie was pretty tasty.
Thank you.
A little bit of kick
Just
in
a
it.
little heat. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not overwhelming.
Yeah, no, it's not. Now let me try this one. Mm-hmm. The green cookies,
The
right?
green cookies. It's good for for March.
It kind of melts in your mouth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those were a favorite around the office. They did not last long.
What causes it to melt so fast? It just
I think it's just the extra sugar, all that good granulated sugar,
Okay. I like it.
the low calorie parts.
Yep. I'll finish these later.
Yes.
So, Lindsey, what has writing the food column taught you about yourself?
It's taught me that I can be more adventurous than I thought. When I first started, I was such a stickler for following every rule, and that it's really taught me to be that I can do things that I don't necessarily think I can at the first glance. I've done steamed bao buns now. I've made layered cakes. I've made ganache. I did a souffle. I never thought I could do that kind of stuff. And so it's really taught me that I can be a little more adventurous and try things that I didn't think I could do.
So, have people tried some of those adventurous recipes and given you feedback?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and there's even a local nonprofit that I am now on their regular rotation for dessert auction every year that I make them something weird and they auction it off. But yeah, it's been fun I take it to, my family knows now if it's a holiday, if it's a birthday, somebody's getting a weird dessert or a weird meal out of it because I'm just trying something new all the time.
So, what advice would you want to give, or would you like to give someone who may want to start something new but is uncertain about it, or a cooking column or recipe publication?
I mean, the worst thing that can happen is sugar chicken. That's the worst thing that can happen is you try it and it doesn't quite work out the way you wanted it to. But just whether it's with cooking or whether it's with newspapers, I mean, there's always that opportunity to pivot into something different and say, okay, that didn't work, that was silly, but let's throw that away and let's start with something new. And I think that that's the biggest thing to remember is that mistakes aren't always permanent. They're just a setback.
But you and your husband do more than publishing the newspaper locally and publishing recipes for food recipes. You speak around the country about journalism and teach journalism in various states.
Yes.
Now that is amazing, teaching journalism in various states. How did that come about and what is it all about?
So this is about 3 years ago now, the Kansas Press Association was looking for ways to help kind of just train people, community members, to be journalists. We have a lot of newspapers around the state that are having a really hard time recruiting people to come to their newsroom. And after several attempts of trying to figure it out, I finally just offered up my services as a former teacher. I said, let me create a course. And so I sat down, and it's all on-demand journalism training that I put together literally in the office at my house, just videotapes and handouts and all kinds of stuff to teach somebody how to do it. And it went from, we offered it to every publisher in the state of Kansas who was a press association member, and then suddenly other press associations found out. And so then we were in Wisconsin, and then we were in Texas, and now all of a sudden we're in Missouri and Oklahoma and and Kentucky and all over the place in the country. And as we started distributing this out where people were able to start training these community members to be journalists, then they also said, well, come to our conference, talk about what you guys are doing in Harvey County and kind of some of the innovations that you've tried with your newspapers. And so now we've been traveling all over the place, and it's been an amazing adventure.
But they don't have to be college graduates nor journalists or journalism majors.
Right. Yeah. The goal is to give somebody kind of those good basics that they need. What do I do if I'm conducting an interview? How do I know what questions to ask? Who do I even know who to talk to? And then there's also a section on ethics. So you're not just throwing somebody in, writing a blog that has no experience with how to be, fair and balanced and unbiased. We talk a little bit about that. And so, it's the gamut of what do I do if I walk into a government meeting, or how do I shoot the pictures at a volleyball game? So everything in between.
So is there a difference, and these are for small town newspapers, I'm assuming, right? The teaching?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are there, or is there a difference between big city journalism and small town journalism?
I think in some ways, part of it I think is more about how localized even those big cities are. If we see in a lot of the big cities, Minneapolis, for example, has a lot of small papers that cover more neighborhoods. And so to me, those are small town papers, even though they're in a gigantic city. So what we do probably doesn't translate out to, the Dallas Morning News or the New York Times, but it can be used, all over the place depending upon, we've got papers in Alaska that are using our training now, and all the way down in Texas as well. So it's all over the place.
So what's the future of your newspaper, and what's the goal? Where do you see it in 5 years from now?
Our community is so supportive of what we do, and that's the main thing. I think they talk about newspapers dying all over the place, and for us, it's because we have such a good community connection. I don't foresee any worries for us as we move forward. 30 years from now, do I think that we're all still going to be putting it on newsprint and that kind of thing? Probably not. But I think that news is always going to have a place, that people always want to know what's going on. People want to stay informed. And the goal, or what we do as an industry is going to continue to be vitally important. And for us as a company, we're getting ready to expand with another newspaper, which is super exciting. And we're moving full steam ahead. We're excited about where we're going.
So how many papers do you have now?
We have 3 right now.
And where are they?
So we have the Clarion, which is the small towns basically from Yoder to Mays on K96 Highway. And then we have Harvey County Now, which is Harvey County. We have the Hillsborough Free Press, which covers Marion County. And then we will be adding the Hutchinson Tribune, which will be Reno County and Maine Hutchinson. So.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
So what about you? What's your personal goal for the future?
I want to make sure that we are leaving behind a good legacy for our community with what we do with our newspaper. That for me, as long as I'm in this business, as long as I'm moving forward, that this is the way that I contribute to my community, to my neighbors, and that kind of thing. So I guess for me, that long-term goal is just continuing to do the right thing by our communities and to be able to leave that good legacy.
So is technology today with other newspapers reducing to a few pages? Is technology affecting your operations as
Absolutely.
a small town?
Yeah.
How is it?
So, it used to be that people really had like the big 3 that they would advertise with, right? It was television, it was radio, and it was newspapers, and that was about it. And now there are about 1 million buckets they can pour those dollars into. And so it was about 2 years ago now, we actually put a poll out to our readers, and we said, newsprint's becoming expensive, postage is expensive. What would you guys, we want to sustain this? Do you want us to go to just digital only? Do you want us to continue to print? Like, where are you at? And the vast majority of people that responded said, please don't stop printing. We love the print. Please keep doing it. And so we said, okay, we're going to raise our rates. And people were like, that's great, go for it. And it's been amazing for people to support us in that way. So it definitely has impacted us. But the neat thing is now it's very much the 2 pieces really fit together nicely, that we publish every day on our website, but then they get that weekly digest version they can sit down with a cup of coffee to read.
So let's come back to your cooking and recipes. What's one dish, the one dish that you haven't tackled yet, but are dying to try?
So I announced at the beginning of the year in my column that my resolution for the year, I will at some point this year learn how to make soup dumplings. That is my goal. I'm a little nervous and scared, but I think I can do it. So, but that will be by December. It will have come out at some point. I'm going to do it.
All right. Publisher, journalist, culinary creator, Lindsey Young. Thank you so much for joining me one-on-one.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching this edition of One-on-One. One-on-one@kpts.org is our email address if you have a question or comment. I'm Victor Hogstrom. Be well, and I'll see you again soon.